Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the father and son podcast where we talk about fantasy, sci fi, and whatever other nerdiness we want to get talking about. I'm Jim, the father of this show, and this is another one of our Just Jim episodes. Zach is not with me today, it's his weekend off. Not from work, from podcasting. But he's still looking forward to rejoining us for our next episode when we'll return to the Wheel of Time. Today, got a different kind of thing just to keep some content coming out here for all of you. We're going to have some fun talking about favorite science fiction and fantasy authors. But more about that in just a moment. I want to tell you what I'm drinking today. Because this is one you could make, but you got to do a little work to get the ingredients for it. This is a Sazerac. I will put a picture and the recipe online. I just realized I didn't take the picture yet, so I should take it now before I drink it. That makes sense. All right, there, you caught me. I just took the picture. So, a Sazerac, the official drink of New Orleans or Louisiana. One of those. I think it's the official drink of New Orleans. We enjoyed these when we did our vacation down there back in November. Zach and I and other family members and such. And we went to the Sazerac factory, Sazerac house. That's what it's called. And learned the history of this specific drink. So, to make a true Sazerac, you got a glass that you have put absinthe in, an absinthe rinse all the way around it. Absinthe is not easy to find, but you can find it. Kind of takes essence of black licorice. Was illegal for a long time, but because they didn't understand it, it's not illegal anymore. In here, you take a sugar cube and you muddle it with specific bitters, Peychaud's bitters. It's something created in New Orleans. And you've got that all meshed and muddled, and to that you add some cognac. You can substitute other things, whiskey, a specific whiskey, for example, but cognac is what's supposed to be in here. And that's what I've made today. Oh my. This is one of the most magnificent cocktails you can try. And this cognac is my Christmas cognac that Zach gave me. So top notch all the way around. That's a Sazerac. And again, I'll put it on our Discord drink recipes channel and we'll drop it in our Instagram. If you enjoy today's episode, I want to ask you to like this video. I mean, really, like the video. Heck, if you already follow our content, you know you're going to enjoy this. So like the video now. That way you won't forget when it's all done and you're moving on to other things. We also hope, if you haven't yet, that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the content that we keep trying to bring out here for you. And finally, look down in the show notes for all the links on how you can connect with us, like on our Discord server, or in social media, or even Patreon, where you can choose to become one of our supporters and just for as little as $1 a month, get some extra benefits that we bring to our Fantasy for the Ages patrons. We would love to see your support and give you some thank yous for that. I have one note for you today before I move into our actual content, and that's a word about my green screen. I really like my green screen. I really don't like that it's too narrow. I've been trying to go, I can just roll with it. I can make it work. No, it looks so good that it makes this look so bad. So today I ordered a bigger green screen. So those sides are going away. It might be a couple of episodes still before I have it in the mail, arrived and ready to go. I ordered it. My wife saw the price. She went, "Oh, that better be a good green screen." So again, patrons, thank you for your support, making it possible for us to do stuff. Now I just have to figure out how to get this smaller one down to Texas so Zach can start using it on his end. Okay, let's get into content. We're talking about a top 10 today. Everybody enjoys a good top 10 list, right? So I'm bringing one to you, and it's going to be awesome. That's my plan. This top 10 list, though, I need to clarify. I'm talking about my top 10 science fiction and fantasy authors. And I'm going to tell you why I've put them in this list. But I'm not trying to tell you these are the top 10 science fiction and fantasy authors of all time, or even right now. This is, as usual for us, a very subjective thing. So these are my personal top 10, the ones I have enjoyed and appreciated the most as of what I've read so far. So this is a fluid list. Ask me again in 6 months, and the order may have changed. Some might have dropped out because others came in and bumped them out. Certainly, there are names on this list that a couple years ago wouldn't have seen it at all. I hadn't read them yet. But the more I read, the more I discover and learn, and this list will continue to fluctuate. But today I'm bringing to you right now who, based on my own personal preference and enjoyment, are my top 10. And I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up, of course. Number 10, Terry Brooks. What a nice nostalgic fantasy author. Terry Brooks, of course, wrote the 33-book series, the Shannara Cycle Saga. I can't say the Shannara Chronicles for obvious stinking TV reasons. But the Shannara books, just, man, I spent years reading those. Really enjoyed them. They get a little repetitious over time, but it doesn't matter. There's this overarching world story that he created and kept trying to find more ways to tell more stories and advance civilization and transform things over hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's fascinating. But when I read a Shannara book, what I most get now is just, it's comfortable. I can engage it without having any ickiness necessarily. I mean, there's bad things that happen because there's conflict and all, but it's still comfortable. It's not pushing the boundaries or trying to adjust my perceptions of what I would like and wouldn't like. No, none of that's in there. It's just good, fun, traditional fantasy. So, Terry Brooks, you're on my list, way down at number 10, but you're there because I love your stuff. He has written things beyond the Shannara books, but that's all I've read of Terry Brooks, and that's enough for me. Number 9. Let's jump over to science fiction. I'm putting Isaac Asimov on my list as my 9th top author. Now, he's primarily here for his Foundation series, which I read years ago. Loved them. They totally sucked me in. I mean, predicting the future on a grand scale over centuries using basic mathematics. Okay, maybe basic is a little understated. But mathematically calculating the odds, the probabilities, and fairly well predicting the course of humankind. Wow, it's magnificently done and potentially possible, which is the best of science fiction. Things that could happen, they just haven't. I will also throw in I, Robot as another Asimov book, separate from Foundation, that I've read, that I enjoyed. I mean, his 3 laws of robotics in that book and everything that comes out of that, fascinating. All right, let's move on to number 8. George R.r. Martin. Yeah, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. My first entry into a totally different, grittier type of fantasy fiction was through George R.r. Martin. I mean, he was grimdark before anybody was using the term. He helped define this subgenre of fantasy. His works are super compelling. I plowed through the books as I could get them, and I would finish if he'd ever write the rest. He spawned 2 TV shows from these works that he's created. This world of Westeros. Man, he needs to finish these. He tells us he's still gonna do it. I'm waiting. Zach, resistant perhaps, but I want more. I will read more. Number 7. One might say I'm jumping back into science fiction. Others might say, nah, that's still fantasy. Frank Herbert, the man who wrote the Dune saga, a mind blowing, fantastical science fiction series. The core books are complex and well thought out, and they span so much time, centuries, to tell this one story. Later books come out from his son after Frank has passed away. Brian Herbert is basically drawing from the notes, the things that were behind the books his dad wrote, and he tells more fascinating stories and really helps you understand just how huge this vision Frank Herbert had developed. Brian Herbert's books, many don't think hold up to the same bar as his dad's did. I don't care. I enjoyed those too because they're in the same world, they're telling the same story, and they're giving me more of what I wanted to know. So fantastic. And they all pile together for me to feel like Frank Herbert is my number seven. Number six. Hmm. A kind of fantasy, mostly fantasy adjacent, perhaps. It depends on your definitions, but this author is really more known for his horror and suspense. I count those as a kind of fantasy. We're talking Stephen King. Admittedly, I am behind on my King reading. Many of his more recent books I haven't touched yet. They're in the TBR. I will hopefully get to them. I probably should elevate them a little higher. I've read nearly everything he put out from 1974's Carrie through 1991's Needful Things. I'm hit or miss after that. I mean, I've read all of The Dark Tower, which finished well after 91. I've read The Green Mile, which is totally different. Loved it. Cell, Under the Dome are a couple more that I read and enjoyed. Uh, I own Duma Key, but I haven't read it yet. It's sitting on the shelf for years now, waiting for me to get to it. Actually, I belong to a Stephen King book club way back in the 90s, which is mostly how I moved through all of the original books. They kept sending me a new one every month. I found his writing compelling, dark, mysterious, sometimes chilling. I really do need to get back to Stephen King. When I left off there, some of his stuff had started to become a little repetitive, but I think I've sold him short. He branches out more as he gets into the newer days, I understand. So there's more to enjoy with Stephen King. I know our patron, Eric, would definitely want me getting back to more Stephen King. So, sir, I will. I'll move back and catch up on him. That's the bottom half of my top 10. Let's move into the top. Number 5, Anne McCaffrey. Now, I've only read her Pern books, and with that, only the first 16, which is really the core story of the Dragon Riders of Pern. These 16 novels are a beautiful blend of science fiction and fantasy that captivated me on my first read, and now I'm rereading them, and they're just as good, if not better. After I reread these 16 with our book club on Discord, we're going to go on to the additional 10 books that have been written, some by Anne McCaffrey, some co-authored with her son, and some written only by her son, and even one by her daughter. Anne McCaffrey has passed away, but there's still a possibility for more Pern books because the family can still write more. Some of her other works are in my TBR. She was is a well-established science fiction author as well. Again, Pern is a blend, but I've got some of her sci-fi books waiting for me to get to. What I find most impressive of Anne McCaffrey is she was a rock star writer at a time where really men were dominating the field. And her skill was so obvious that the industry was unable to ignore her. She started the Pern series in the late 60s. You didn't have many female authors hitting it big back then. Thankfully, there's a ton of them out there now, but she was a trailblazer. She wrote compelling characters who deal with and overcome significant challenges that you just want to keep reading about. So, Anne McCaffrey, number 5. Now we get to number 4. Someone out there is going, Jim, when are you going to get to this one? When are you going to get to this one? You better get to this one. Yes, Jordo, I'm looking at you. Number 4 is J.r.r Tolkien. Really, how could I not have Tolkien on my top 10? I've read and reread The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion many, many times. Going back to high school, I shared The Hobbit with my 5th graders in my early years as a teacher, even having our own lunchtime book club to go through this book chapter by chapter. And some of them I inspired not just their love for reading, but fantasy fiction. I ran into one of those, Richard, if you're watching this, at JordanCon last year. It was a hoot as he's there introducing me to his wife and crediting me as his 5th grade teacher who helped him fall in love with fantasy fiction. So, yeah, that was a win. J.r.r Tolkien's writings, of course, spawned my favorite movie of all time, The Lord of the Rings. You know, that 12-hour extended edition that really is meant to be watched in one sitting. Yep, I've done it multiple times. In essence, Tolkien gave birth to fantasy world building like we know it. And the genre, as it exists, owes a direct debt to Tolkien. So, number 4. So, who can I have put higher than Tolkien? Okay, I got 3. Number 3 is Brandon Sanderson. Now, I'm not trying to tell you he's better than Tolkien. That's not what this is. I'm saying I enjoy him now more than Tolkien. I first came upon Brandon Sanderson when he finished The Wheel of Time. And I'm like, wow, thank you. You saved my favorite series. What else have you written? Well, he had Mistborn, Era 1, already out there. So I read those books. Went, hey, this is pretty good. Has he written anything else? Yeah, the dude's a machine. He puts out so many books. And now it's like, I don't know, is he the new Shakespeare? Are there really other people writing these books for you and you just put your name on them? Because how can anybody write so many books so fast? It's unbelievable. I mean, the whole freaking Cosmere that he's created is fantastic and so many layers interwoven, and we keep discovering more and more connections. And now he's got these secret novels that are out that are even adding more layers and elements to it. The first one, Tress of the Emerald Sea, you can find a book blast and a rapid review here on our channel for that one. Of course, Cosmere is kind of at its peak when you hit the Stormlight Archive, Sanderson's Opus collection, 4 books long right now. I understand eventually 10 book long. I don't know if I'll be around long enough to get all 10. We'll see. But the first 4, quality. I've also read his Reckoner series. Now, that is not Cosmere. It's totally different. It's more YA, easy to read. Superheroes gone wrong, gone bad. Really good, though. Again, Sanderson always entertains. I'll give him one more prop to Brandon Sanderson, and that is the way he engages with the fan base. Not all authors do, and some really do it badly, but Sanderson, he is connected. He's got his own YouTube channel, constantly putting things out for the fans. He keeps them updated on his website and how his writing's coming. The guy is just pretty awesome. So, number 3, Brandon Sanderson. Number 2, Robert Jordan. I mean, come on. Our channel focuses on the Wheel of Time with nearly half its content. It is, for Zach and I, our favorite series. So much in it, so much depth. We convinced Judy, my wife, to read it, and she loved it. I've reread this series so many times and found nuances and connections that just go on for days and you don't catch on the first time or the second time. I mean, you got to keep reading to catch all of this stuff. It's so well written. The crime of the Wheel of Time is that Robert Jordan was taken from us early. Because if only we'd gotten more of the books that were in his head, it would be so delightful. The Outrigger novels that he had planned, the backstories, the advancing further, there was so much goodness. And I really would love to see some of those written someday by someone else who can continue on in the spirit of Robert Jordan. But for what he did give us, which is quite a chunk when you look at the 15 books of the Wheel of Time. Thank you. Definitely high on my list, number 2. So if I put the Wheel of Time author at number 2, who in the world did I say for number 1? Well, come on. If you subscribe to this channel, you know who I put at number 1. And for some of you, it's sacrilege. I put him over Robert Jordan, Brandon Sanderson, and J.r.r Tolkien. But Jim Butcher, absolutely my number 1. Is he a better writer than everyone else on this top 10 list? No. Does he hit the sweet spot for me better than anyone else? That's what matters, and the answer is yes. First, the Dresden Files. And now I'm reading his Codex Alera, and that's epic fantasy. Dresden Files is urban fantasy, but the way he writes just connects for me. I mean, especially the Dresden Files. I get his humor. The style of writing just feels so right, so comfortable, so entertaining. He has another series he started, the Cinder Spires. And I understand only one book is out back in 2015. So he was too busy with other things and life to get more of that done yet. But I'm going to read that book when I see there's more coming out. I hope he does, because it's got great reviews. More of a steampunk type novel. So he keeps picking these different genre styles and being successful at them all. But of course, best of all, Dresden Files. We got 17 books. We got a bunch of short stories, novellas, and there's still more coming. Lots more coming. So excited for that. Pretty much what I'm telling you here is if Jim Butcher writes it, I'm going to read it. And I'm eager for anything else he drops. That's why he's number 1. All right, that's my top 10. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on these, but I have 2 others that I want to give honorable mention to. I just felt it was worthy. If I'm talking about my top 10, these are 2 that I thought about putting in the list, but they didn't make the cut. But they're still really good for me. Ones I've really enjoyed and spent some time with. So, honorable mentions. The first one, Zach will completely disagree with me on, Stephen R. Donaldson. I've read his 10-book series, The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. It's really in 3 parts. And I couldn't get through these massive books fast enough back in the day. They're totally epic fantasy. Zach feels they're too dated now. No, I like them. I really do. I know some people feel the stuff doesn't stick with them as much, but for me, I can remember those stories. I really enjoyed that world building, that epic fantasy tale. I've also read his 2-book duology, Mordant's Need, The Mirror of Her Dreams, and A Man Rides Through. Different from the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. A little bit of flirting with romance fantasy, which I don't like. So when I read them, I was like, okay, this is the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant guy, but I'm not sure about these. I still found the story worthwhile, but they're not as high on my list. Maybe that's why I didn't make the top 10. He does have more out there, though, that I could read. And specifically, I've added to my TBR what's considered his best science fiction, which is The Gap Cycle. If any of you have read the 5-book Gap Cycle, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Should it be in my TBR, or should I pull it back out? Let me know. The other one I'm giving an honorable mention is Mark Tufo. He's not in the same class as many of these authors when it comes to his writing style, but he's got going for him what Jim Butcher does when I look at it, in that his style and his humor, it hits a chord for me. I'm always entertained. His stories are complex, multi-layered things, even if they can be somewhat shallow sometimes, because he's writing shallow characters. It's on purpose. I also could say he channels a little Brandon Sanderson in the sheer volume of what he puts out. He's put out so many things. I mean, his Zombie Fallout series is the first thing I found for him. Totally love it, along with its various related works that are interwoven. And there's dozens of these books out there. But you can hear me talk more about Mark Tufo in my Zombie Apocalypse recommendations episode, which came out recently. Look for it. here on the YouTube channel. All right, that's it. You've got my top 10, you've got my recommendations. So I'm just going to run the outro now. Let's see, where are you? Right there. Again, reminding you of the ways that you can connect with us: Discord, social media. We do have merch you can buy. Uh, Not much, but you can get your own mug, coffee mug, or frosty mug with the Fantasy for the Ages logo. It's good quality. I drink coffee out of mine every day. We'd love to connect with you, so find us on Discord or social media for sure. We even have an email address down here in the show notes. Send us an email. Someone recently did actually asking if we read his book. He said, yes, please, send us a copy. And he sent us the whole series. It was awesome. So it works. Come find us. And if you really enjoyed this, again, don't forget to like it. But we do have a Patreon. You could choose to support us too, and we would thank you kindly. That's it. We'll talk to you next time.